If you have mucus in your throat, here's a test you can do in the next 5 seconds that tells you more about it than most quick appointments ever will. Swallow right now and pay attention to what happens at the very back of your throat. If a thin, sticky film settles right back into place the moment you finish, you just felt the clue. That film is not left over from a cold. It is not allergies. Your throat is actually manufacturing fresh mucus on purpose around the clock because something further down in your body keeps ordering it to. Today I will show you what is sending that order and the full plan to make it stop. And before we are done, I'm going to tell you about one ordinary evening habit, something millions of people over 60 do almost every single night without a second thought, that quietly feeds this problem more than anything else. Let me introduce myself properly. I am Dr. James Weatherly, and on this channel I do one simple thing. I take the health questions that a rushed 15-minute appointment never has time to answer, and I explain them slowly, clearly, and honestly in plain language. For adults over 60, no jargon, no fear for the sake of fear, just the understanding you deserve about your own body. If that sounds like something worth having in your week, take 1 second right now and subscribe. I am trying to reach more people over 60 who have been told to just follow the schedule and never shown the reasoning behind it. Today we're going to solve one of the most stubborn, most misunderstood complaints I know of. That constant mucus in your throat. Here is the first idea I want you to hold on to, because it is the spine of everything that follows. That mucus is not the problem. The mucus is a signal. Think of it like the smoke detector in your hallway. When it goes off at 2 in the morning, you do not solve anything by taking the battery out. The alarm is annoying, yes, but the alarm is not the danger. The alarm is information. Your body works exactly the same way. It never produces mucus at random. Mucus is one of your body's oldest defense systems, a protective coating your tissues create on purpose when they believe they are under attack. When your throat keeps coating itself with fresh mucus, hour after hour, day after day, your throat is not malfunctioning. Your throat is protecting itself from something. The only question that matters, is what it is protecting itself from. Answer that, and the mucus stops on its own, because the alarm has nothing left to warn you about. Most people never ask that question. They spend years muffling the alarm with sprays and lozenges and pills while the trigger keeps firing underneath. Today we ask the right question. Why has nobody explained this to you before? Honestly, it is not because your doctor does not care. It is because of how modern appointments work. You get a short window of time, the complaint sounds minor, and throat mucus in an older adult gets filed under the usual suspects almost automatically. Allergies, post-nasal drip, a lingering cold, maybe just age. Each of those is a reasonable guess, and sometimes they are even right. But when the sprays and the antihistamines do nothing, most people are simply told to keep using them, and nobody circles back to connect the dots across the whole picture. The real cause of persistent throat mucus in people over 60 very often sits in a completely different part of the body, a part that never gets examined during a quick look at your throat. That is the gap this video fills. I want to tell you about a man I will call Raymond. He is a composite of many patients, but his story will sound familiar to a lot of you. Raymond was 67, a retired high school band director from Dayton, Ohio, a man who had spent 30 years standing in front of teenagers with a trumpet, a man whose voice was his career. And about 2 years into retirement, Raymond developed a throat-clearing habit. At first it was just mornings. Then it was mornings and after lunch. Then his wife Carol started counting, half as a joke, and told him he had cleared his throat 40 times before noon. Raymond felt a film at the back of his throat that never went away. He would swallow, and within seconds it was back. He described it to me as feeling like a thin coat of glue behind his tonsils that no amount of water could rinse off. Raymond did what almost everyone does. He assumed it was post-nasal drip. He bought an allergy pill and took it every morning for 3 months. Nothing changed. He tried a saline rinse for his nose. He tried a steroid nasal spray. He tried menthol lozenges, cups of hot tea with honey, a humidifier next to the bed. Every remedy made sense if the problem was coming from his nose or from dry air. And every remedy failed because the problem was not coming from his nose or from dry air. By the time I met Raymond, he had spent nearly 2 years and a small pile of money treating the wrong end of his body. He was frustrated, he was a little embarrassed about the constant throat clearing, and he had quietly started to worry that something serious was hiding in his throat. Hold on to Raymond, because we are going to follow him all the way to the answer, and his answer is very likely your answer too. Now let me teach you what was actually happening inside him, and I promise to keep this simple. Picture your swallowing tube, your esophagus, as a soft vertical pipe running from your throat down to your stomach. At the bottom of that pipe, where it meets the stomach, there is a ring of muscle that works like a one-way door. Food goes down, The door closes, and the harsh acid inside your stomach stays where it belongs. There is a second, smaller door at the top of the pipe, right below your throat, doing the same job one floor up. Two doors, two checkpoints, guarding your throat from what is essentially a vat of acid strong enough to break down a steak. Here is what almost nobody realizes. Those doors are muscles, and like every other muscle in your body, they change after 60. They lose a little tension, they get a little lazy about closing all the way. On top of that, some very common medications, certain blood pressure pills, and everyday things like caffeine, chocolate, peppermint, and alcohol all relax those doors even further. When the doors do not seal tightly, tiny amounts of stomach contents can drift upward. Not a flood, not the burning wave of classic heartburn. Something far sneakier, a fine mist, microscopic droplets of acid, and, even more important, a stomach enzyme called pepsin, a chemical whose entire job is to digest protein. That mist rises up the pipe, slips past the upper door, and settles on the tissues of your throat and voice box. Stop and think about what your throat is made of. Protein, soft, delicate tissue with none of the thick protective lining your stomach has. When droplets of pepsin land there, they begin, very literally, trying to digest the surface of your throat. Your body detects that chemical attack instantly. And what is its oldest, most reliable defense against a chemical touching delicate tissue? Coat it. Shield it. Produce a layer of mucus to keep the irritant off the surface. Your throat is doing precisely what it was designed to do. It is building a protective blanket over and over because the attack keeps happening, mostly in small, invisible episodes, day and night. That film you felt when you swallowed at the start of this video is not waste. It is armor. Your body rebuilding its shield within seconds of you swallowing it away. Doctors have a name for this condition, laryngopharyngeal reflux, which simply means reflux that reaches the voice box and throat. Most people just call it silent reflux, and that word silent is the key to the whole mystery. This is where it gets interesting. With ordinary heartburn, acid splashes the lower pipe, and the lower pipe has enough nerve sensitivity to scream about it. You feel the burn, you take an antacid, you know exactly what is going on. But with silent reflux, the amounts drifting upward are so small that the lower pipe barely notices. No burning in the chest, no sour taste, no warning at all. The first place that reacts is the throat itself, because throat tissue is dramatically more sensitive to acid and pepsin than the swallowing tube is. Researchers studying this condition have actually found pepsin, that stomach digestion enzyme, sitting in the throat and voice box tissue of people with these symptoms, which is remarkable when you think about it. A stomach chemical detected far away from the stomach, in the exact spot where the mucus and irritation live. That is the smoking gun, and it is why a large share of people with silent reflux will tell you, completely truthfully, that they never get heartburn. If you are one of those people, if you have constant throat mucus and you cannot remember the last time you felt heartburn, do me a favor and type the word silent in the comments right now. I read them, and I want to see how many of you recognize yourselves in this, because I suspect it is most of you. Raymond certainly did not believe it at first. When silent reflux was first suggested to him, he pushed back hard. He said, and I remember this clearly, I do not have acid problems. I have a mucus problem. And that sentence is exactly why this condition hides for years. The mucus is so visible, so constant, so annoying, that it hogs all the attention, while the true cause never announces itself. The alarm was blaring in Raymond's throat, while the small fire smoldered 2 floors down, and for 2 years he had been unplugging alarms. Now, silent reflux was the engine of Raymond's problem, but it was not working alone, and this matters, because if you only fix one piece, the mucus often lingers. There were 3 forces feeding Raymond's throat, and I want to walk you through all 3, because you almost certainly have at least 2 of them. The first, as you now know, was the weakened doors and the rising mist of acid and pepsin. That was the source of the irritation, the reason the alarm existed at all. The second force is one almost nobody sees coming, and it was happening while Raymond slept. Think about your body position at night. All day long, gravity is your bodyguard. You are upright, and anything that drifts up out of the stomach has to fight gravity to reach your throat, which limits how far it gets. The moment you lie flat, that bodyguard goes home. Your stomach and your throat are suddenly at the same level, like water in a bottle laid on its side. Now even a slightly leaky door lets that acid mist travel the whole length of the pipe with almost no resistance, and it can sit against your throat tissues for hours while you sleep, completely unfelt. Picture a garden hose with a slow drip at the connector. Hold the hose upright and the drip just runs back down. Lay the hose flat on the patio and that same tiny drip slowly soaks everything around it. That was Raymond's throat. every single night. It explains the pattern so many of you know intimately. The mucus is at its absolute worst first thing in the morning. You wake up, your throat feels coated and raw, you spend the first hour of the day clearing and swallowing. People blame morning allergies or dry bedroom air. In reality, for many of you, your throat spent the night being misted with stomach chemicals and built its thickest shield in response. You are not waking up with allergies. You are waking up at the scene of the crime. Before I give you the third force, I want to pause on something because we are at the halfway point, and this is where I need you to lean in rather than drift. Everything so far explains where the mucus comes from, but knowledge of the cause is only half the prize. The back half of this video holds the part that actually changes your daily life, the full step-by-step plan Raymond used, and that one ordinary evening habit I promised you at the start, the single biggest hidden driver of nighttime reflux in people over 60. The third force feeding Raymond's problem was, painfully, Raymond himself. The throat clearing. This is the cruelest part of the whole condition, so listen carefully. When you clear your throat, you slam the folds of your voice box together violently and blast air through them to scrape the mucus off. It feels productive. It is the opposite. Each throat clear physically irritates the very tissue that is already inflamed, like scratching a mosquito bite with a wire brush. And what does your body do when throat tissue gets irritated? You already know the answer. It protects the tissue. It makes more mucus, which creates more of that film feeling, which triggers another throat clear, which causes more irritation, which orders up more mucus, around and around, a perfect self-feeding loop. Raymond was clearing his throat well over 100 times a day by the end, and every single one of those clears was placing a fresh order for the mucus he was trying to get rid of. 2 everyday pictures for this. It is like a dog licking a hot spot on its leg. The licking soothes for 1 second and worsens the wound for hours. Or think of constantly wiping a non-stick pan with steel wool because food keeps sticking, never realizing the steel wool is what ruined the coating in the first place. If you caught yourself clearing your throat at any point during this video, and I would bet money many of you have, type the word film in the comments. Let us see how many of us are in this club. Put the 3 forces together, and Raymond's 2-year mystery dissolves into something simple and almost elegant. Loose doors let a chemical mist rise from his stomach. Lying flat at night, let that mist bathe his throat for hours, and his throat-clearing habit kept re-injuring the tissue all day. 3 causes. 1 film of mucus that never, ever went away. No allergy pill on earth was going to touch it, because there was no allergy. No nasal spray was going to touch it, because the nose was never the source. Raymond had been guarding the front door of his house for 2 years while the leak came up through the basement. There was one more piece to Raymond's story, and it is the piece I have been saving, the evening habit I mentioned in the first minute of this video. When Raymond finally sat down and walked through an ordinary day, hour by hour, one detail stood out. Dinner at Raymond's house had drifted later and later through retirement. 7:30, sometimes 8. A full plate, often with tomato sauce or something fried, usually a cup of decaf after, sometimes a little chocolate while watching television. And by 9:30 or 10, Raymond was in bed, lying flat. There it is. The habit is eating a full meal within 2 or 3 hours of lying down, and it is devastating for a very mechanical reason. A full stomach is a stretched stomach, and a stretched stomach pulls that lower door open at the exact moment it needs to seal tightest. Then you lie down and remove gravity while the stomach is still churning at peak acid production, digesting that late dinner. It is like filling a water balloon right to the top, then laying it on its side with the neck loosely tied. You have created the perfect physics for an all-night slow leak aimed directly at your throat. Millions of people over 60 do this every single night. Late dinner, television, bed. For Raymond, that routine was the single biggest driver of the whole problem, bigger than any individual food, and closing that loop is what finally turned his story around. And turn around it did. Raymond made a handful of changes, the same ones I am about to give you, and the first 2 weeks were quiet. He was skeptical. Then, somewhere in week 3, Carol pointed out that she had not heard him clear his throat all morning. He had not even noticed. By 6 weeks, the film was mostly a memory, showing up faintly only after a heavy late meal, which by then he understood perfectly. The morning coating was gone. His voice, which had grown rough at the edges, smoothed back out. The mucus stopped. Not because he found a stronger way to fight the mucus, but because his throat finally had nothing left to shield itself from. The smoke detector went quiet because the fire was out. When I last spoke with him, he told me the strangest part was mental. He said he had spent 2 years thinking his body was failing him, and it turned out his body had been working flawlessly the whole time. It was sending exactly the right signal. He just needed someone to translate it. Now let us make this practical for you. Here's the plan, 5 steps. And I want you to understand why each one works, because understanding is what makes people actually stick with it. Before the steps, one honest word. This video is for education, to help you understand your body and have a smarter conversation about it. It is not a diagnosis. Your situation is your own, and the changes I describe should be discussed with your own doctor or pharmacist, especially where medications are involved. Step 1. Move your dinner earlier and make your last 3 hours before bed a no-food zone. This is the heavyweight of the entire plan. You now know why. An empty, settled stomach at bedtime means low acid production and a relaxed, unstretched door, so there is simply far less mist available to rise while you sleep. If you take away only one thing from this entire video, take this. Finish eating at least 3 hours before you lie down. That includes the bedtime snack, the late decaf, and the square of chocolate on the couch. Step 2. Raise the head of your bed by about 6 inches. Not extra pillows, because pillows only bend your neck and can actually squeeze your stomach by folding you at the waist. I mean raising the entire head end of the bed frame on sturdy blocks or risers, or using a full-length wedge so your whole upper body slopes gently downhill toward your feet. This puts gravity back on duty all night. Remember the garden hose. Tilt the hose and the drip runs back down instead of soaking your throat for 8 hours. People are often shocked how much difference this one change makes to the morning mucus. Step 3. Retire the throat clearing and replace it with a swallow. This one takes honest effort because the habit is deep. When you feel the film and the urge rises, take a small sip of water and do a firm, deliberate swallow instead. A swallow moves the mucus down without slamming your voice box tissues together, so it breaks the irritation loop instead of feeding it. The urge will still come for a while. That is normal. Every time you swallow, instead of clearing, you are canceling an order for fresh mucus. Give it 2 to 3 weeks of consistency, and the urges themselves start to fade, because the tissue underneath is finally calming down. Step 4. For a few weeks, ease back on the door relaxers, the foods and drinks known to loosen those muscle doors and boost acid. The big ones are caffeine, alcohol, chocolate, peppermint, fried and fatty foods, and for many people, tomato-heavy and very spicy dishes. I'm not telling you to give these up forever. I am suggesting a genuine trial, several weeks of keeping them modest and keeping them away from the evening, so you can feel for yourself how much of your mucus they were driving. Your own throat will give you the answer more clearly than any test. Step 5. Bring this to your doctor as a specific question, not a vague complaint. There is a world of difference between saying my throat always has mucus in it and saying I have constant throat mucus and throat clearing with no heartburn, and I would like to talk about whether silent reflux, laryngopharyngeal reflux, could explain it. That second sentence hands your doctor the thread to pull. It also matters because some common prescriptions can relax that lower door as a side effect, and your doctor or pharmacist can review yours with that in mind. Never stop or change any medication on your own, and please hear this clearly because it is important. If you ever have trouble swallowing, food sticking on the way down, unexplained weight loss, hoarseness lasting more than 3 weeks, coughing up blood, or pain with swallowing, that is not a wait-and-see situation. See your doctor promptly. Those symptoms need proper eyes on them, and going in early is almost always the difference that matters. Quick question for you before we close, and I genuinely want to know. Which step are you starting with tonight, the earlier dinner or raising the bed? Type 1 or 2 in the comments, and while you are down there, tell me what part of the world you are watching from. It helps me know who I am talking to each week. Here is the thought I want to leave you with. For 2 years, Raymond believed his body was broken. It was not. It was faithful. It saw a threat, and it protected him, every hour, without being thanked. And the moment the threat was removed, it stood down quietly. Your body is doing the same thing. That film in your throat is not a malfunction, and it is not just getting older. It is a message, and now you can read it. That is the difference between fighting your body and working with it. One of them exhausts you. The other one sets you free. One last thing, and it matters more than you might think. The people who most need this explanation, the spouse who clears his throat all evening, the sister who has carried cough drops in her purse for a decade, the old friend who blames it on allergies every spring, those people are almost never going to search for a video like this because they have already accepted the problem as normal. You might be the only way it ever reaches them. If this video opened your eyes even a little, share it with that one person who came to mind while you watched, and subscribe so these explanations keep finding you each week. Next week, I want to talk about your feet, because there is a change that shows up in the ankles of many people over 60, usually dismissed as tired legs, that is actually one of the earliest visible signs of a struggling heart, and knowing how to spot it early can change everything. I hope you will join me for that one. I'm Dr. James Weatherly. Take good care of yourself this week.